Let's draw shading and shadows. Hello and welcome to the Shadows and Shading edition of GoGoMachRocketSheep. My name is Rob Schaff, and today we're doing shadows and shading, and the reason we're doing it is because adding some shading and some shadows to your illustrations really makes them pop, and there's a few different ways you can do it. The first way is to look at a reference, and that's a great way to learn, when light falls on something, where the shadows are cast and what's lighter and what's darker. And actually, that's probably the best way to learn how to do shadows. Here's just a quick demo for you. So as you can see, we have a toilet paper roll, and you can see that the overhead lighting is adding some shadows. But with this blue flashlight that I'm using, you can very clearly see where the shadow is cast and where the cylinder is shaded and where it isn't. And so, of course, the best way to learn how light works is just to look at how light works. And hopefully this blue light is coming through nice and strong on the camera. But of course, it's also fun to try to imagine how light works. And that's what we're doing today for easy, medium, and hard mode. It's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get to that, let's take a look at the art that you sent in last week.
Art you sent in. Easy mode.
Okay, so for easy mode today, we're just going to be using a pencil. We're not going to be doing any inking or coloring. We're just going to be doing a pencil because I want to work on some basic shading. Okay, so we're going to start with a few different shapes here. So we're going to start with a square and a circle and a triangle. And the first thing I want to do is make each of these three-dimensional in a bunch of different ways. So we're going to do the square right here, first by drawing another square overlapping, and then we get rid of this overlapping line here, and then we connect the corners, and then we get rid of those interior lines, and now we've made a little cube. Although it's not a perfect cube because I kind of did it quickly. That's okay. So for the circle, we're going to do two things. First, we're going to draw, we're going to have our circle just like normal. We're going to draw another circle. Oops. Like this. And we'll attach like this. And then we'll get rid of that line so that we have a cylinder. And it kind of looks like a can. To this one, what we're going to do is we're going to add a little oval on top, and then a line straight down, and then a curvy line, and a curvy line, and it kind of looks like a beach ball. Nice. I should zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. On this triangle, what we're going to do is we're going to extrude it. So extruded shapes are imagine you're playing with one of those things with Play-Doh where you shove it into the mold and then you squish it through and it kind of poops out a shape. That's called an extruder, and that's what extruding is. So we have a cube, which is just an extruded square. We have the cylinder, which is an extruded circle, as well as a sphere, a ball. And then we have a triangle here. We can also make it into a pyramid, which we're going to do by putting a square on the bottom, but it's kind of lying down on its corner, then picking a point up here, and then all of those corners connect to the point, and then we just want to erase the lines that are not on the outward facing faces of a shape. It kind of seems complicated, but you'll get it. Then we're also going to draw a cone, which is a circle, and then it comes to a point, and then you just draw the two edges of the circle to the point, and you erase the inside line. Okay, now that we have all of these shapes drawn, what I want to do is we're going to draw it. We're going to shade it. Because I always mention briefly, I just shaded something really quick, but I never really go into kind of how I visualize that. So what I will do is draw lightly a grid. You don't have to do this part. I'm just drawing this so that you can visualize what I'm doing. So hopefully you can see that my 3D cube here sits in this 3D space that I've kind of drawn, I've imagined, right? I'm going to just fix my cube here a little bit. It's a little off. Okay, now imagine that we have a flashlight, and the flashlight is pointed down like this. Okay, here's the light, and here's the flashlight, and it's pointed this way. Okay, so when I shade, what I do is I imagine the light is coming from a point in space, 3D space, and then with this light, I draw the rays that would emanate. Okay, so the light's hitting here, and then light travels in a beam, so kind of like a circle, like that. So this part here is all going to be white. Now, the next thing I would do is take a look at this shape and think, well, what isn't hitting the light? And this side for sure isn't hitting the light. So I would darken that side with my pencil, making it nice and dark. So when you shine a light at a surface, it's not like the whole surface is lit up. Like, even look at my hand. It's being, right now, it's in the light. Maybe I'll put it under here. If I put my thumb here, you can see there's light in the bottom corner of the screen. You can see there's light that hits my thumb, but you can see that this part is in shadow. It's blocked out and it's darker, right? So, and even like this part of my hand that's in the light, you can see that along this edge, the light starts to taper off, because light, where it hits strong, it's going to be bright, and where it's diffused or where it's hitting less directly, it'll not have as much of an impact. So what I do then is I would draw on this cube. This corner might be dark, this corner might be dark, but this will all be light. All right. And then what I would do is I would add the shadow. So if the light's coming from here, it's going to be blocking out this section of the 3D space, and a shadow that leads away from here. Okay, so if the light comes and it hits here, and so like a shadow is, if you have a shape that's like this, the shadow is away from the light and it goes like this, right? So we have a square, so we're going to draw sort of another little square that comes out here. And then, yeah, that's sort of how you do that with that. Now let's move our light to this here cylinder. So if it's hitting the cylinder on the side there, it's going to be hitting, the beam will hit sort of like that, which means that the front of the, well, I'll move my grid down here too so that we can see our shapes. Okay. Let's see here. Where did my shadow later? There we go. There we go. Okay, so then this part is going to be really bright. This part will be diffused. And then there's this whole sort of section of the cylinder that's going to be dark. Like that. And then this shadow of this cylinder is actually going to be kind of a rectangle because it's an extruded shape. And that's just kind of how it works. Kind of like that. Now I'm kind of fudging the shadow a little bit, but that's okay. You just have to sort of envision a 3D shape on a 2D space. It's a little tricky, but hopefully this is going to help you, give you some practice. Okay, on a sphere, we move our flashlight, it hits right there, and then what we will do is we'll do the shading in the same way. So this side is going to be nice and dark, and it's going to follow the curve, but as we get over here, where the light hits, it's lighter, and then we draw the circle of the shadow that it leaves. Nice. Okay, extruded triangle. Similar, we move our lights over there. Okay, let's move the light. Let's say it's hitting right here. So again, we're gonna have this part of the triangle. Where's my shadow? There it is. We're gonna have this part of the triangle dark because there's no light hitting it. This corner of the face will be dark to light, and then there's going to be like that, and that'll be dark. Okay, for this pyramid, it's actually a little different because when we move the light over there, it hits the surface of this light, of this surface, sorry, is totally angled towards the light. So that means that this is going to be totally lit up. This will be dark here. Oops, I got to draw that on the right layer. Oh, I'm getting all confused with my layers today. Where's the shadow? There it is. Okay. So this will all be totally dark. This will all be totally light. And then we will draw a point like that. There we go. There's our shadow. And then on the cone, it's a little different again. So it's like the sphere in that we have to like sort of radiate it out. So this corner will be dark, but as it sort of spheres around, it gets a little lighter. So we're just making this corner really dark, this corner a little lighter where the light is, and then we go from like this and we draw the shadow of the cone. Okay, so we get rid of our light, we take a look at our shapes. That is a very rushed and kind of hopefully helpful explanation as to how you can think about shading.
Medium mode.
Okay, so for medium mode, what we're going to do is just draw a very simple character, and then we're going to shade it. So let's start with a circle for a head. Let's do a body that kind of looks like this. Maybe a little neck. Maybe some shoulders. Let's see here. Butt, knee. This is not going to be a very let's see. So I'm just making a skeleton here really quick. Arm up, hand. There we go. Okay, and then let's cut that ahead. Okay, so we have our basic skeleton. So we'll add some eyes, circle, a nose, a mouth, and then you can make the hair look like whatever you want. I'm going to go like this, and then I'm going to go like this. It's kind of crazy hair. That's okay. Okay. Then draw whatever clothes you want. I'm going to just keep it basic. Triangle collar, sleeves, comes down, around. Then we have, just going to make these tubes into pants. Like so. And then maybe I'll flesh out these shoes with a tag. There we go. Bring that arm in. So all that I'm doing is we've made these sort of approximations. All I'm doing is adding them into tubes, giving them some depth, just because we want to do this pretty quick. There we go. And not bad. We have our sort of figure. Okay. So let's pretend that we want to shade this here figure. Let's add some light from a light source. It's going to be shining from this corner down this way. Okay. And let's say that it's a nice wide beam light. It's kind of like everything from here to there is in directly in the light. Okay. Right off the bat, what we can do is we can say, okay, so there's going to be a little shadow coming from his chin under there. There's going to be, like, he's not a cardboard cutout, which means that this side of his chest is going to be more in the light. This side of his chest is going to be more in the dark. So, especially under the armpit here, we can make that part really dark. Okay, and then we can make it a little lighter over here. The back of his shoulder, his head is in the way of the light, so make that a little darker. And then the underside of his arm is going to be kind of darker too. As well as this whole arm is further away from the light than this arm, right? His butt's going to be in the shadow, and this side of his pants are in the shadow, especially the bottom of his shoes. Over here, the light's kind of hitting here and resonating down like that. So we can say this will be in the shadows, and then it'll get lighter this way. These hands are out of the light, so these fingers, so I'll make this part dark, but here's where it gets bright. And this thumb is going to cast kind of a shadow down the arm. This arm will cast a bit of a shadow right here. His hair is going to be pretty shaded up here, and then this side of his head is away from the light, so it'll be shadowed. And then the nose on this side will cast a shadow, as will the underside of the lip. The ears, yeah, it'll be shaded like that. So we have our dude all shaded up. Okay, so now what you can do, you kind of have this pencil shading done. Kind of dynamic. Oh, and then we should add his shadow. Coming down from that, it's going to be kind of a small shadow. Kind of pretty bloop. Then the elbow sticks out, and then his head's up here. So then we can draw that all in like that. Okay, so we have our shadow guys. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink and color using this shadow, this shading that I kind of did as a marker for where the colors need to be darker and where it can be lighter and that kind of a thing. So you can see all we did was we took the exact same way that we would kind of conceptualize lighting a simple shape like a cube or a sphere or an extruded triangle. We imagined where the light source would be, and then we imagined which parts of our drawing are going to be in the light and which parts of the drawing are going to be out of the light, which is closer to the light source, which is further away. And now what I'll do with coloring is I'll just make darker color where it's shadow, and I'll make lighter color where it's not shadow. I'm still going to do outlines, but adding the shading to the drawing is going to make it look pretty cool. All right, so now we have our dynamic shading. The light source is right there. You can kind of see how it's shining. And now what I'll do is I'll color this guy up a little bit, and you'll see how the shadows sort of help. Now, digitally, I can do this. I can add shading whenever I want. If you're not drawing digitally, you'll have to draw first the colors and then add the shading after. And if you're using like pencil crayons, you'll actually have to go so far as to like use different shades of the color that you're using if you really want to get it to work good. Sometimes if you have like really good pencil crayons, you can sort of blend the colors, but often that's not the case with cheaper pencil crayons. They don't blend as well, which is why art supplies can cost so much money. Okay, so we have our basic coloring of the dude, and then we add our shadow, and you can see, oh, it looks so much more dynamic with a little bit of shading. And because this is digital and I love digital art, I'm going to actually change the shadow color from just being straight black to being, oops, I'm on the wrong layer. There we go. We're going to change the color to be red because I like using red to shade. It just looks nice and kind of more natural that way. Okay, so here's my hard mode drawing on the thirstiest paper ever. It was kind of difficult to do actually because normally watercolor paper gives you a few seconds to spread around ink and watercolor. This paper did not. It was thirsty and it just absorbed it, and so my blending isn't super great. But you can see that I tried hard not to really use outlines except for where a shadow caused kind of a strong line. And then everything was sort of done in the same tone. So that was my hard mode. Without outlines, it's good to challenge myself. This is not like my typical illustration style, so it's fun to try. It was a lot of fun. Don't try to guess who it was. I literally have no idea who this is. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week. Make sure you send me your art. I would love to see it and put it in next week's video. GoGoMachRocketSheep@gmail.com. Thanks!